Greetings, everyone. Hot off the presses, it's the brand new edition of The Weekly Hero. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. Awesome to have you guys here. And, of course, I am joined, as always, by the one and the only, the great Robert Meyer Burnett. How you doing, Robert?
I'm good. Thank you for that introduction. That was very nice.
Well, it's true. You are indeed great.
Well, I think we're great together.
Well,
we're
thank you very much.
Yeah, we're a team.
I like being included in that. And listen, guys, this is, of course, the show where we talk about all the things in the world of superheroes that go on the big screen and the little screen. We got a number of topics here that we're going to talk about here today. And we're going to start off today's topics with this. We've talked a little bit about this upcoming Deadpool re-release, that whether it's a Deadpool 2 re-release, whether it's an amalgamation of Deadpool and Deadpool 2, whatever. But it's Once Upon a Deadpool. Of course, they're calling it the 12 Days of Deadpool. It's getting released on December 12th, runs through Christmas Eve on December 24th. The first trailer for it dropped, which was all kinds of spectacular, super funny. But here's the interesting thing. I had a few of our UK viewers write to me and point something out to me that I thought was very interesting. The whole thing about this shtick is building all their gags around the fact that this is a PG-13 version of Deadpool. As some people would say, a family-friendly Deadpool. I've had a lot of people writing to me, Robert, saying, like, seriously, multiple people writing to me saying, yay, this is a Deadpool I can take my kids to. I'm going to take my kids to go so they can see how funny Deadpool, all this kind of stuff, right? Well, a few of our viewers in the UK caught onto something and let me know about is this, that Once Upon a Deadpool, which is playing in the UK, got a 15. What is a 15? A 15 is roughly their equivalent of rated R here, and is the exact same rating that Deadpool and Deadpool 2 got. So this Once Upon a Deadpool is getting the exact same rating in the UK as Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2 got, which kind of ultimately kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. So here's the question I have, Robert. And I mentioned this on the John Campea show the other day, and I want to see what you think about this. You know, a lot of people, like some of those viewers wrote to me, said, I'm going to take my kids to see it. We're thinking this is the clean version of Deadpool. We sometimes forget that PG-13 in our doesn't necessarily mean clean. We've seen some edgy stuff that got a PG-13 stuff. So my question to you is this Once Upon a Deadpool going to be a lot less family friendly and a lot less clean if it's still getting the same rating in the UK as Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2 than maybe we thought it was going to be? What do you think?
Well, I think the standards in the UK are different in terms of language and violence.
Right.
Like you can say the British are very colorful with their use of bad language.
Yes, they are. All the way back to Monty Python.
Yes, and I'm a huge Graham Norton fan. I love the Graham Norton show. I watch all the time. And people swear. They say the F word. They say the C word. They say bad words, which aren't as bad in Britain because they're more adult over there because they have accents.
I guess, right.
You know, but here, violence is something that we are much more accepting of than they are necessarily in Europe.
Right.
And I think that there's probably just as many people getting skewered by Deadpool in this version, or at least enough that are skewered in the version for the British that they're like, well, the violence has not been toned down as much. And here it's probably language. They get rid of all the bad language so it can get that PG-13. But if you can skewer anybody you want here. I remember Paul Verhoeven once said he was frustrated about the fact that you can show as much violence after he made, RoboCop.
Right.
You can show as much violence as you want, but you touch a bare breast in America and people are like, uh-oh, R rating.
Right.
So it's a different land here.
Well, it even goes back to the old comic book code stuff, right? Like you could have people bleeding in comic books before, except the blood couldn't be red.
Yeah.
It was often black or something like that, right? And a lot of it's the same true in our movies today too. Like you can have a lot of violence. Venom was a PG-13 movie, right? The body count in Venom is huge. And including this one scene talking about skewering where Riot turns his arm into a giant scimitar and drives a guy through right into the wall, but you didn't see any blood. And as long as there's no blood, everything's fine. Now, it should be noted here that, in North America, when it says PG for adult situations, whatever, R for brief nudity, whatever. In the UK, it said rated 15 for extreme violence and I believe crude humor is what it said. So I don't know. I don't have any kids. But I'm now thinking...
You're a kid at heart.
I am a kid at heart.
Like myself. I'm an aging man-child.
Right now, Ann and I have no kids. But I'm thinking that if I did have kids right now, I don't know that I would feel okay about taking little Ann or little Johnny to go see a Deadpool unless maybe I went to go see it first, because like if it's still getting the same rating, granted, I think you're 100% right about how there's different things here that trigger us as opposed to over there. Language over there, nothing. Language here, heavy duty. The bare breasts kind of touching thing you mentioned, all that kind of stuff. But still, I don't know if all these people writing saying, I'm going to take my kids to go see a Deadpool movie, maybe it's something we should caution each other against, and saying maybe go see it first before you do it. Like, what would your advice be?
I think that's exactly right. I mean, only you know what's best for your kids, but thematically, Deadpool is not exactly, I can't see Deadpool ever being totally kid-friendly.
Right.
I mean, it's a rough, even with you think about the beginning of Deadpool 2 when he travels around the world. How many guys does he kill?
Many kills.
Kill Bill style, just like the bride whacked the crazy 88. Yep. I mean, that's kind of what happens at the beginning of Deadpool. Would they get rid of the blood? I mean, famously, like in Dark Knight, the opening when Joker takes out the bank, you don't see any blood. He machine guns how many people in that scene? No blood, no squibs. But Deadpool is, unless they can remove the CG splattering blood, which I don't know. I mean, it's a weird, I think this whole thing is really weird, and I think Fox is cool for doing it. I just
agree.
like it because it's so insane. Like, didn't we just theatrically release this movie? I mean, they're spending some money on marketing. They went and hired Fred Savage again. I mean, good for them. I mean, I want to live in a world where there's that kind of crazy being done. But I still don't know if Deadpool's for kids. Like, is that what they're I don't get it. Like, are they supposed to be?
I think, see, a lot of people have this idea that, the reason they're doing a PG Deadpool is to see if Disney can make Deadpool movies PG. I think that's radically incorrect.
Yes.
I think that's radically incorrect. They're going to make the PG-13ness of it the joke.
Right.
I think that's clear. They're not actually making a clean version of Deadpool. They're trying to see if they can do PG-13 and make the PG-13 the joke of the movie.
Exactly.
And I think you see that with the Fred Savage stuff. By the way, how brilliant is that Fred Savage material in the trailer?
Well, the conception of it, there was a little kerfluffle. There was a guy on Twitter who claimed he had come up with this idea and posted it years ago, the Fred Savage idea.
Right.
And of course, he finally said, I talked to Ryan Reynolds. Just great minds think alike kind of a thing. But I just think the idea is so insane and awesomely cool. Like, it's such a good idea. And the fact that the studio said, sure, go do that. I mean, did they have to get the rights to The Princess Bride? Did they have to check in with, William Goldman, who wrote The Princess Bride, passed away last week. Did they have to check in with his estate? Or how did
Reiner? Did Reiner have to have any say?
How did they do
they don't
that?
make any direct references to Princess Bride. I guess there's
That's
nothing
true, but
wrong
the
with
scenario,
it.
I guess it's parody. It's covered under parody.
It's parody. It's absolutely covered under parody.
I love the idea that, again, I'm always saying we live in wondrous times. This is a miracle. This whatever it is, I can't wait to see it.
And what the funny thing is, we keep forgetting to mention, we talk about this Murderer's Row of movies coming out December 14th to 21st. And we quite often, because it was late to the game, but we quite often don't bring up Once Upon a Deadpool. I'm telling you what, this Once Upon a Deadpool is high on my list.
Yeah, me too.
Of what I'm going to be seeing that week. Like high, and I think it's going to be high on a lot of people's list. Somebody asked me if I thought it could make $100 million. I don't think so.
Yeah, no.
I think there's only been two maybe re-releases ever made that much. So I think it's unlikely, not to mention it's in that Murderer's Row of when it's coming out, but it will be interesting to see what kind of damage it can cause.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope at the end, we don't know if it's an amalgamation of all the both Deadpool movies, but if it's just Deadpool 2, I hope they've got that longer version of Deadpool 2. I would buy the the ultimate edition of Deadpool 2 with the added Fred Savage footage. They've got to do the Zack Snyder Ultimate Watchmen cut. They've got to do the ultimate cut of whatever this Deadpool is.
Interesting note, the runtime of Once Upon a Deadpool is actually shorter than the runtime of Deadpool 2. With all the extra footage that they're putting in. So I am as fascinated as anybody to see what the hell this thing is going to be.
Yeah,
because I have a feeling all of our theories are wrong. I got a feeling all of our theories are wrong. So I don't know, we'll have to see. All right, let's move on to another topic here. Now, one of the things that we've been talking about around here and that a lot of us are getting excited about is the annual crossover event that takes place in the CW Arrowverse. They've done it every year. It is always fun. They always do something. It's always silly and ridiculous, but it's in a fun, creative,
Right.
energizing kind of way, right? And Elseworlds, which is the title of the crossover they're doing this year, is no exception. We've already seen and talked about the spots that show Barry waking up as Arrow, Oliver waking up as Flash. They are the only two who realize they've switched identities in this. We know we're getting Batwoman. We heard the first references to Batman in a CW show ever. All that's great. They put out another teaser this week. This time, I think, giving us a little bit more insight to what maybe one of the spinal issues of this thing's going to be. And in this shot, they simply showed us Green Arrow as, Grant Gustin in the Green Arrow outfit.
Right.
We had Flash, which was Stephen Amell in the Flash outfit. We got Supergirl. But we also have the original TV version of the Flash, which you guys can see right here, which just looks awesome. Now, we've seen that shot before, but in this new teaser, it shows that standing opposite them is Superman in the black outfit, which is just spectacular. And somebody brought up to me on my show about a week ago and said, how heavily do you think they're going to use Superman in this? And, to me, they turned Superman into a jobber on Supergirl. I'm done with the way they did it. Right. But what I said was this. When they asked me that a week ago, I said, I'll tell you what would get me back on board is if they did a little bit of Injustice Gods Among Us, in which Superman the greatest hero turns into the world's greatest villain, the universe's greatest villain, that the whole universe can't really stop. And they do that. And a part of this Elseworlds thing is all the heroes have to come together to stand against Superman. I said, you do that, I'll geek out for two reasons. Number one, you're doing a little bit of Injustice Gods Among Us, which my favorite comic book story, I know it comes from the video game, but they did a comic runs of it too. My favorite writing in any comic book over the last probably 10 years. I just loved the writing in Injustice Gods Among Us Year One. So I'll geek out for that. The second reason I'll geek out is I'll go, you know what? You do this, you've redeemed yourself for the way you turn Superman into a jobber on Supergirl. You make it so Supergirl and Flash and Another Dimension's Flash and Green Arrow all have to team up together to try to stop Superman. You've won me back over. Because I'm cool with him losing if you got to get everybody else to team up to try to take him down. I'm cool with that. You do this, and who knows, maybe this teaser is a little bit of a misdirect. Maybe it is. Maybe the black suit Superman isn't a bad guy at all. Who knows? But if they do this, as far as I'm concerned, with the Superman being a jobber and they killed Superman, as far as I'm concerned, all will be forgiven. I'm telling you, it's easy to please me, but all will be forgiven.
Well, yeah, look, I'm excited to see what they're doing as well, because the black Superman suit was introduced when Superman came back from the dead.
With his mullet.
With his mullet and the death of Superman. Are they playing any of that into this? Like, is there the sort of the evil cyber Superman? Is there the
like
Eradicator?
Cyborg and the Eradicator?
Is there any of that?
Is Steel going to pop up?
Or are they making a funny reference to the Justice League movie and like poking at it, going, yeah, we're going to bring Superman back from the dead, but the right way? Who knows? I don't. The wit that it took to bring John Wesley Shipp, I was going to say
tongue-tied.
John Wesley Shipp back as Flash was a genius.
In the original costume.
Yes, in the original costume. Is so, to me, it just shows the wit behind these CW shows and why I enjoy them. Even when they get a little repetitive or not as much, you've seen it before, there's still a funness. Is that a word? Funness? There's still a joy in these shows. I mean, as far as being a fanboy, I can fanboy out when they do stuff like that, because it's such crazy thinking. It's the same kind of thinking that brought us Once Upon a Deadpool. Like, wouldn't it be great if we put him back in the Flash costume in the original from 1990 or whatever?
Right.
So that with Superman coming back in the black suit, there's all these questions that people are going to be asking, and they're probably going to answer those questions with things that are cool, that we're like, oh, awesome.
But in the true CW-ness of it all,
well, there's that.
I don't know if there's going to be much deeper meaning. I think it's just black suit Superman to represent evil Superman. I mean, it's probably as simple as that.
It could be, and if that's the case, I would love to see that, because I love it when heroes turn bad and they have to get their asses kicked by large groups of other heroes. Like, that was the great joy of Kingdom Come. When Captain Shazam and Superman
At the time, it was still Captain Marvel,
yes,
though, right? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it was great.
And you know what? You bring up a really good point, is that what you could never do, and I think this highlights the difference and the advantages that the CW universe has over, say, the cinematic universe that they have. You could, what they've done with John Wesley Shipp and get him back in the old 1990s Flash costume,
right.
You could never do this with a straight face in the cinematic universe. No. You couldn't do the upcoming Ezra Miller Flash movie and have John Wesley Shipp show up in the original. No. It would be like, ba, 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 ba. Yeah. Like you couldn't do that, right? No. But in the kind of tone, with all of its advantages and disadvantages, in this tone that CW does their things with,
right?
You can bring John Wesley Shipp in the 1990s Flash, and it'd be awesome, and it's great,
and it feels right. I mean, that's I equate the CW universe to how I felt when I was a kid, buying stacks of comics off a spinner rack, back when they were 25 cents, 30 cents, and you could go with a couple of bucks and get a stack of comics and bring them home.
That was before my day, but
well, it was good. I mean, these were the days, and it reminds me, it was fun. Comic books, this is before Watchmen, before Dark Knight Returns, before Frank Miller did Daredevil and Ronin. Especially the DC universe was just kind of fun. It was kind of a fun place to be. That's kind of how I see the CW. I wish that I was growing up now, like if I was 10 years old. Right. I would love the CW shows. They'd be like my favorite thing.
They are great. And it just highlights that, yes, there are drawbacks to the CW style and what they do, but there are also advantages, and they seem to be playing to those advantages here. Who knows what they're going to do with this whole Superman thing? All I know is if they can come close to the quality and the fun that they gave us with Crisis on Earth X last year, it'll be another big win.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I loved Crisis on Earth X.
Oh, it was great.
It took me a while to catch up with it, but I loved it.
You know, one of the reasons why I loved it so much, and I'll admit my bias here, is because to me, my favorite character in the Arrowverse is Arrow.
Right.
He has been the Batman. A lot of people say, you're making that. That's true, but that's a good thing. They've made him the Batman of that universe. He's the guy without powers, but everybody's afraid of him.
Right.
And I love that in Crisis on Earth X, who ultimately was the guy that took over the world that everybody else answers to. It was Oliver. Right. It wasn't Supergirl. It wasn't Flash. It wasn't all these other metahumans. It was Oliver. And I loved that. And I love that he kind of plays that role in this universe. Let's see what they do with Elseworlds. All right. Before we get on to our next thing, we have a weekly tradition here at the Weekly Hero, where, of course, Robert, being one of the world's great collectors, always brings us in a very cool collectible for us to gawk at and look at. And I'm telling you what, this week, no exception. Robert, who'd you bring in to show us today?
Well, I brought in Khan Noonien Singh, a young Ricardo Montalban, as he appeared in the very first season of the original Star Trek, the 66-67 season. This is Khan Noonien Singh, and he's made by QMX this week, not a Hot Toys figure. Toys, yeah. And he's actually sitting in the separate QMX-made captain's chair from the Enterprise.
Normally, and we all know how much you love chairs.
I love my chair. By the way, this is my favorite chair. You can actually plug it in with a USB cord to your computer, and it will light up and make sounds from the original Star Trek. And I love this. I love that he's in his Space Sea jumpsuit. And the likeness is great. It's funny. I don't know why I chose to bring him in this week. I don't even know. I was playing with him with my dog when the Mars Insight lander landed, and I was taking pictures that Khan was looking forward to us subjugating the red planet. And I figured, well, somebody said, hey, he's got a chair. I'm like, oh, I'll bring him. I mean, normally I should have brought Captain Kirk in sitting on his chair, but everybody does that. I figured Khan is in where he's supposed to be, the helm of a starship. And
here's the funny thing too, is like the episode was so great. I remember as a child, all right, watching Entertainment Tonight. Whatever happened to Entertainment Tonight? How did it become such a bullshit show? But anyway,
they lost John Tesh, man. It all went downhill.
Oh, yeah, the piano called and he went off. But I mean, it was Mary Hart, John Tesh, and the great Leonard Maltin.
Right.
Who used to do their movie reviews.
Yeah.
I love Leonard Maltin, by the way. But what the hell ever happened to Entertainment? There used to be a great entertainment show. Now it's a bullshit, celebrity gossip thing. Anyway, we're getting off track here. But I remember as a young kid, them talking about this upcoming Wrath of Khan. And my mom telling me back in the original Star Trek days, there was this episode, and this is based on that. It's like, wait a minute. They're doing a movie based off of one episode of the old show. How cool. And they've never really done anything like that since. But he went on to pretty much become universally acknowledged as probably the greatest antagonist that Star Trek has ever known. Like, I think if you gather up whether they're Trekkies, Trekkers, whatever, generations of Star Trek fans, and you ask the question, who's the greatest antagonist they've ever had, whether you want to call that bad guy or whatever.
Right.
I bet you at least 8 out of 10 of them are going to say Khan Noonien Singh.
Right. And, what's really great about this figure and the character is portrayed, Khan ran a quarter of the world's population.
Right.
He was one of 70 or 80 supermen that genetically engineered people. Now that we have CRISPR technology, I'm hoping that someone can turn me into a genetically engineered Superman like Khan himself. But he was just a great character. He was a noble. In that episode, he's not a bad guy. He just, as Spock says, superior ability breeds superior ambition.
Right.
And they wanted a world to win. And if you haven't seen this episode of the original Star Trek, it's streaming somewhere. Go watch it. It's great.
And then, of course, watch Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Absolutely. And it's great to watch them one right after the other as well.
With my last breath, I spit on thee.
Yeah, it's so great.
So good. All right. Well, thank you for bringing that in. And we will actually, you and I have already talked a little bit about what you're going to bring in next week, which we won't give away, but I'm very excited about it.
Oh, yes. And I'll bring that in. And, I've heard a rumor. Actually, I don't know if it's true or not, but I think somebody should make the entire bridge in this 6 scale because I would buy it. It would probably be as big as this table.
I'd be shocked to find out that it doesn't exist somewhere. I mean, it has to.
Well, someone built one for their Mego figures, and it's amazing. But I want a licensed bridge that you could buy each wedge piece. It might take, a couple of years to be able to afford the whole thing, but I'm sure that I could put it right on my dining room table and my girlfriend would be all okay with it. Not. But I would do it anyway.
All right. Well, let's move on now to the next topic up here for discussion. One of the things that happened over this Thanksgiving weekend, which by the way, I hope you had a magnificent weekend, and I hope you guys all had a magnificent holiday weekend as well, was a little trailer dropped for this little obscure film coming out from this studio called Disney called The Lion King. Apparently it's based on some original older animated thing that none of us have ever heard of or watched.
Kimba the White Lion, right?
Something, yes, exactly. So this thing explodes all over the internet, and it brought up a question. You see, here's the thing. Going into this past weekend, it was not only the favorite, it was a commonly held, I don't want to say expectation, but let's say expectation, that, the number one box office film of 2019 obviously is going to be Avengers IV. I mean, I don't think there was a lot of debate or discussion to be had. I think even the most diehard Toy Story fan would say, yes, that's going to, I think even the most diehard Star Wars fan would say, yes, Avengers 4 is going to win the box office. It was a foregone conclusion.
Foregone conclusion?
Foregone conclusion.
I see what you did there.
I'm going to tell you what, that weekend changed a lot of things because I am not so sure anymore, lock, stock, and two smoking barrels, that Avengers 4 is the clear-cut expected winner of that weekend any longer. And I'll tell you why. And I mentioned this on my show, but I'll just say it here. It wasn't the trailer. By the way, I love that image that Ray put together. That is spectacular. That's an awesome image Ray made.
Maybe they have to, maybe Avengers 4 is a crossover with The Lion King.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That's how they defeat Thanos.
At the end, it's Simba who comes in and rips him apart, throws him down to a pack of hyenas. So, and it wasn't the trailer that made me suspect maybe this could beat Avengers 4. It wasn't the fact that it was the second most watched trailer in history in its first 24 hours, despite the fact that it wasn't really expected and it came over holiday weekend when not a lot of people are on the internet anyway.
Right.
What told me that this was a movie that could beat Avengers 4 was what I call the worldwide global response to this trailer. It was the response and the reaction that you saw all over the world of people responding to this trailer. And it was summed up great in a message one of my viewers wrote in and said, hey, I have a bunch of siblings that have families of their own. I can never get them to go to the movies. But as soon as the Lion King trailer dropped, all of us siblings were on the phone together and saying, we and our families all go see this day out. What I kind of said, and the way this strikes me, is that where Avengers 4 and the MCU as a whole has done a magnificent job of bringing out the hardcore fans and the general movie-going audience to their movies, Lion King strikes me as something a little bit different. I think Lion King is going to be the movie that gets out all the hardcore Lion King fans, all the casual movie-going fans, but most importantly, and going back to what my viewer wrote, this is the type of movie that people who don't go to the movies will go out to the movies to see. And it is on that basis that I'm wondering, is it a foregone conclusion anymore that Avengers 4 will actually be the number one movie at the box office 2019? Or could it be this damn little CGI created Simba Lion King? And because I'll tell you what, I'm not willing to put money on it either way, but this whole notion of it, foregone conclusion, automatic, take it to the bank, it's going to be Avengers 4. I don't know that that's true anymore. Am I crazy for thinking that? What do you think?
No, look, 225 million people watch this in the first 24 hours.
Yep.
So if every one of those people paid $8, you're looking at $2 billion there. And you think people aren't going to go back and watch this? It's funny because there's a new generation of kids being born all the time. And there's kids that might be 4 or 5 years old. They haven't seen The Lion King yet. They just haven't gotten around to it. There's so much to see. This is going to be their first Lion King.
Far too much to take in here.
I mean, this is going to blow their minds.
Yes.
I mean, it blew my mind as well. There's all this debate about whether it's a live action. No.
There's no debate. It's not a live action
it's animated.
film.
It's animated. It's a photorealistic
animation.
CG animation. Yeah. But I think it's still like, in my mind, when I watched it, my jaw kind of hit the floor. I thought The Lion King was astonishing. I really,
it's my favorite animated film of all time.
Jungle Book.
Yeah, Jungle Book is great.
The CGI in the Jungle Book, and hearing Christopher Walken sing, it was so good. And you're watching this, you're totally transported. I loved it, and I think that I got excited for this. I got excited because look, this is called The Weekly Hero. Simba is a great hero.
It's a great hero.
That's why we're talking about him on this show. And
we're really talking about Avengers 4, but yeah, in light of Lion King, yeah.
But I mean, can you imagine, who wins? It doesn't matter which one makes more money. Bob Iger wins.
Yes, he does.
And Disney shareholders win. And we all as audience members win. And then, of course, I mean, Disney is going to have perhaps the greatest year any studio's ever had next year.
Yeah.
I mean, episode 9, they've got
Toy Story 4.
Toy Story 4.
By the way, there are 4 films.
Aladdin?
I don't believe any more than one will cross 2 billion, but I think there are 4 films that have a shot at hitting 2 billion. Obviously, Lion King and Avengers 4, obviously.
Right.
I think Toy Story 4 has a shot because like the last one made 1 point something billion at the box office. Sure. The anticipation level for this is through. I think it's got a shot. I'm not saying it's likely it's going to hit 2 billion. And I think despite the downturn with episode 8, I think Star Wars episode 9 is the final film in the trilogy. I think that has a shot at 2 billion. Then you're talking about films like, and let's not forget Frozen 2. Frozen 2, of course. So there's 5 films right there, I think, that have, so wait a second. A Lion King, Avengers 4, Toy Story 4, Star Wars Episode 9, and Frozen 2. I think there are 5 films. I don't think Aladdin has a shot at 2 billion.
Well, no, not at 2 billion, but just in terms of Disney's coffers.
Well, not only Aladdin, but now you also got this Dumbo, which is looking way better than we thought it looked before.
Right.
Captain
Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
What a year.
A film that is being distributed by Sony, but is being produced by Disney. Spider-Man Far From Home, which is going to probably clear 1 billion. It's just going to be big. It is. Then you're looking at other films like Artemis Fowl is in there as well, adding to the coffers. There's like 9 movies that are coming out. I just don't know how Disney doesn't have the biggest film of the year. And it's funny, when we talk about the movies in 2019 that have a shot at 2 billion, Star Wars Episode 9, Avengers 4, Toy Story 4, Frozen 2, Lion King, they're all Disney films.
Right.
They're all Disney films. I don't think anybody's expecting Wonder Woman to hit 2 billion.
No.
I'm expecting Wonder Woman to be great. I'm not expecting to hit 2 billion.
And that's not next year. That was moved to
2020. But so Shazam.
Right.
Shazam. I think Shazam's going to do very well. I think the trailer looks phenomenal. Can't wait to see it. It's not in the $2 billion discussion. No. Hellboy is coming out, but that's not going to be in the $2 billion
But it could do
discussion.
Shazam if it's great. Could do Venom numbers.
It very well could,
Venom would have put up 820 something?
Well, we'll get to Venom in just a little bit. We'll talk about Venom in a bit. But so, I mean, ultimately here, let me just put it very plain and simple. Understand what we got with Lion King, understand what we got with Avengers 4. Would you still say, like all of us would have said a week ago, would you still say today, I feel extremely confident that Avengers 4 will be the #1 film of 2019. Would you say you are extremely confident in that?
Yeah, I would. I think I'm 99% confident that Avengers 4 is going to be, because it's going to be, I think, one of the most epic movies. It's the return of the king of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is what it is. I mean, I think it's going to be just the most epic thing ever. And I've often set myself up for disappointment frequently with the James Bond franchise.
We all do.
But I don't think this movie is going to be disappointing in the least. I think Avengers 4 is going to be even better than we think it could possibly be. Just a feeling.
And you know what? I cannot say 99%. I think it's a coin toss. I'll go 50-50. I really am.
Right.
Just because of that one basis. Number one, well, first of all, Lion King is based on probably the greatest animated film of all time. In my opinion, some other people feel differently.
I'd say Fritz the Cat. But
then you look what Jon Favreau did with Jungle Book. Right. Understanding the way he translated that, what could he do with material like Lion King? And again, to me, it comes down to that one thing. Unlike Star Wars Episode 9, unlike Avengers 4, this is going to be a movie who gets people who don't go to the movies going to the movies. That could be the tiebreaker.
Yep.
But so I'm not willing to say Avengers 4 is a lock anymore. I think it's a 50-50 coin toss. I really do. We'll have to kind of wait and see as we get closer to both, but they're both coming up. All right. You brought up Venom. So let's talk about Venom, as we've had to talk about Venom, I think 3 or 4 weeks in a row now, about how stunned we are at the financial results. And it seems like every week it just keeps doing it. Last week, it passed films like Ant-Man and the Wasp, it passed an MCU film that was coming off of Avengers Infinity War, all that kind of stuff. This week, more milestones. It passed Wonder Woman, a bona fide blockbuster hit. It passed one of the most celebrated films of this year, Mission Impossible Fallout. Passed it. It's sitting right now officially at $822 million. And the real number is probably a little bit higher than that right now. But let me ask you this, Robert. As a joke, I asked in previous episodes, do we think this movie that nobody thought would work without Spider-Man could maybe actually catch Spider-Man Homecoming, which of course made $880 million. The official number right now for Venom, $822. I still think it's unlikely, but oh my God, when I saw that $822 number, I'm like, it is within striking distance of Spider-Man Homecoming. We are now talking about this Venom movie that everybody said would not work without Spider-Man, and everybody's saying we hope it flops, and everybody said all this kind of stuff. It may surpass Spider-Man that they said that movie couldn't work without. I still think it's unlikely, but I've gone from thinking it's a 5% chance that it may catch Spider-Man Homecoming, and I'm thinking it might be like a 45% chance that it's going to catch Spider-Man Homecoming. I think this coming weekend, when we see the box office results from this coming weekend, it'll give us a much clearer picture. But I'm willing to say it's a 45% chance Venom catches Spider-Man Homecoming, which nobody in their wildest dreams ever thought was remotely possible. Robert, what would you say are the possibilities of Venom actually catching Spider-Man Homecoming?
I think it's a distinct possibility. I mean, Venom, it keeps playing, and worldwide it has legs. And there's one thing I never anticipated, because we were always looking at Venom, especially comic book fans, as this comic book adaptation.
Right.
But I think a lot of people that might not be familiar with the character as much as, say, comic book fans are, especially in China, where it's cleaning up.
Yeah.
It's a monster movie. It's this sort of fun, weird. Have you seen the DVD Blu-ray trailer dropped?
The rom-com.
The rom-com version.
Oh my God.
And so they're taking a page out of Deadpool's marketing.
Yes, they are.
And they realize that Venom is this weird hybrid thing that's unto itself. It's goofier than I would have ever imagined. It's just weird and strange, and it's kind of become its own thing. In a way, it removed itself from the Spider-Verse and created its own alternate universe. It kickstarted, and of course the tie-in now with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I mean, the fact that you've got that coming on the heels of Venom, and it's kind of a part of it all, and it's just kudos to Sony for all the naysayers and us fans are poo-pooing everything. I'm not gonna go see a Venom movie with no Spider-Man. Well, now you've got a whole Spider-Verse that's animated. It's part of the MCU, and now Venom is spearheading. It makes Sony look like they really knew what they're doing. even though they didn't. But of course, maybe they did. I don't know. But it looks like we have a Spider-Verse that is here to stay and it's financially viable. I mean, they announced they're going to make a Spider-Woman movie now. I mean,
well, they've announced a lot of things. Let's see what they actually end up doing. I mean, we know Morbius is happening because they're shooting that fairly quickly here.
And Jared Leto is shaving.
They're shaving, so there you go.
Shaving now. So it's incredible. I mean, look, I love to see these epic wins for these cool movies because in the long run, it just means that more movies of this ilk will get made. So, it's like it's the old, I think it was the ad line for Aliens versus Predator. Whoever wins, we lose.
We lose.
But it's the reverse of that. They're winning, we're winning. We all win. The audience wins, the studio wins, fans win.
And
Venom
what's
wins.
funny, when you look at these, when you talk about taking chances, and this brings up an interesting question. When you look at these films that have been taking chances to push these envelopes, to open up new worlds, you're talking about movies like Deadpool. You're talking about movies like Logan.
Yeah.
You're talking about movies like Venom. You're talking about movies like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Interesting thing to note, none of those 4 films come from the 2 major powerhouse comic book movie producers. None of those films come from the MCU. None of those films come from DC. It was other outside studios and filmmakers that are making these films that are pushing the limits. And you bring up Sony. And here's the funny thing. Before Venom came out, and going back a ways, ever since The Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out with the Electro, right? It became the cool thing. It became the cool thing to say, Sony just doesn't know what they're doing. Sony, right. And I would keep telling people, whoa, time out. I was as disappointed with The Amazing Spider-Man. I mean, I didn't think The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a complete dumpster fire, but it was a huge step down from The Amazing Spider-Man. And yes, emo Spider-Man, emo Peter Parker in Spider-Man 3. Sure, I get it. But this is still the studio that gave us Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, which for a long time I think was the greatest comic book movie ever made for a while.
Yeah.
And I thought The Amazing Spider-Man 1 with Andrew Garfield was quite solid.
I did too.
Like, okay, did they do The Amazing Spider-Man 2? Did they do Spider-Man 3? Yes, but let's not suddenly pretend that Sony is some gaggle of incompetent buffoons who doesn't know what they're doing. No, nothing Sony touches will work. Sony, everything they touch sucks. Isn't Spider-Man 2 good? Well, that was because of this. What about Spider-Man? That was because of that. What about The Amazing? No. Sony makes mistakes, maybe more than we're comfortable with. But then they put out a Venom that everybody said would fail, and it might catch Spider-Man Homecoming. Now they got this Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse coming, and we don't know how it's going to do at the box office, but the critic reviews are out now, and the last we checked, at 48 reviews, the last time I checked, 48 reviews were in on Rotten Tomatoes, 100% rating. It's not going to hold 100%, let's be clear about that, but 100% rating. Is it time for the comic book movie fan community to take a breath, bite down on their lip and say, maybe we were wrong about Sony. Maybe Sony is better at this than we gave them credit for?
Well, I don't know about that because I didn't think Venom was a particularly good movie.
I did.
I mean, I thought it could have been. I didn't love
it, but I thought it was quite entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it could have been better. You know what? I should say this. I wanted a different kind of movie. And
right. I think a lot of people did.
Yeah, I'm not judging by, look, I'm still hoping that Dark Phoenix comes out and blows my socks off.
Me too.
Even though that's Fox. I mean, the fact that we're getting these movies, again, I keep saying we live in great times. I mean, if you would ask me if I would be seeing all of these movies in a year, Venom, Black Panther, Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, I mean, come on. It's incredible that we're getting these films and they're making money. The important thing is that they're making money. They're keeping audiences happy. They're keeping their corporate minders happy. And that means we're going to get more movies and hopefully more good movies. And that's good for everybody. That's good for the business. It's good for fans. It's good for filmmakers. I'm happy.
I'm happy too. All right, guys, that's it for all of our pre-arranged topics. But as we like to do here on The Weekly Hero, we like to read some of the editorials in from the fans. We like to take some of your tweets. Now, how do you send in a tweet to us? It's simple. Just tweet out a question and just make sure you include the hashtag The Weekly Hero. That's hashtag The Weekly Hero. That way we can see the tweets you're sending out. We've picked out 4 tweets to address here today. So let's go over and see what the first tweet is. The first tweet comes to us from Andrew, who writes, There was word of an extended edition of Infinity War. Do you think Marvel would re-release or would release this in, say, January or February, make it double dip, get everyone pumped for Avengers 4, and make the most money anyone has ever seen? All right. Thanks a lot for the question. And I've had a number of people ask me, hey, do you think Marvel will re-release Avengers Infinity War into the theaters to build up to all that kind of stuff? I'm going to say this. I'm going to say no, they won't. And I don't think they should. And if they did, it honestly wouldn't make much money. Why? Because I'm not an idiot. I bought Avengers Infinity War. I'm not going to go spend 10, 12, 15 bucks to go sit in a movie theater when I can just click a button on my remote at home and watch it right now.
Right.
I mean, and I just saw, it's not like this is a classic 15-year-old movie that I haven't had a chance to see on the big screen in 10 years. It was just out. So
it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. It's on in my Google Play Store. It's on your iTunes. It's, everybody's got it. So I don't think they will re-release this in theaters before that thing comes out. And even if they did, I don't see it making much money because everybody who would be keen to rent out to see it again probably already owns it. And they just saw it a couple of months ago. So I just don't see it happening. What do you think?
I don't think it's going to be theatrically re-released, but I will say this. I would love, the idea of an extended version of Infinity War came about because Jim Starlin had made some comments at a convention that they had a lot more Thanos material than was in the film. And there's a few little deleted scenes on the Blu-ray and the 4K disc.
Uncompleted. Some of them were uncompleted shots.
I mean, I would love to see. I'm a big fan of with these fantasy epics, the extended versions of Lord of the Rings, especially Fellowship and Two Towers, are so much better than the theatrical versions. When they're done well, they can be absolutely astonishing. I dearly love Infinity War. I can't get enough of that movie. It's just, again, it's so much fun. And I have a 3D disc from the UK, and I like watching it in 3D. And it's great. So give me more Infinity War. That's what I say. Bring it on.
That's a great chant. Give me more Infinity War.
That's,
All right, let's go to the next tweet. And our next tweet today comes to us from Terrafraid, I like that name, who writes, a lot of the talk this year was DC's future strategy going forward, depending on how Aquaman is received. How do you think it will fare going forward? Will there be new strategic priorities? If so, how do you think? Hashtag the weekly hero. Robert, what do you think about that?
I really think that Warner Brothers' new strategy is to make standalone movies and not worry about their extended universe. Because if you make a great Aquaman movie and you make a great Wonder Woman 84 movie and you put them back into a movie together, people will go see it. But I think they're going to concentrate, rather than try and work it into this gigantic, larger tapestry of a shared universe, they're just going to make the best movies they can. We've got Shazam coming out, which is basically standalone. We've got Joker coming out, and that's its own thing. I think that they're going to concentrate on making great standalone films. They're going to take a page from the MCU. They made a great Thor movie, 2 Iron Man movies, a Captain America film before they made the Avengers. And I think that's what they're going to do. They're rebuilding. They've gone back and they're going to make some great standalone movies. And then if they do really well and people are clamoring to see these characters again, they'll put them in another combo film. But I don't think that they're concentrating on the shared universe now. I agree with you. And I think it all completely is independent on how well or how badly Aquaman does. Yeah. I mean, look, I mentioned this on the John Campea show the other day, but it's true, is that the biggest criticism, overarching criticism, I think I've had of Warner Brothers' handling of the DC properties has been they have been so bloody reactionary to everything. It's like, okay, we're going to do this for the next few years. Something happens that was a little bit out of place. Oh my God, change everything. Well, let's change this and let's change this. Or something succeeds a little bit more than they thought. Oh, okay, let's revamp everything. Let's build everything around this now. Right? It feels to me like Walter Hamada has come in. He's got a new direction, a new strategy, a new plan that may or may not work, but let's give it the benefit of the doubt. And I think that plan, although we don't know for sure, but I suspect is very similar to what it was you just laid out. And I think he is not going to be reactionary. I think he believes in the plan he has. And whether or not Aquaman is a big hit, I do not believe it's going to change one single thing about their immediate future. I think they're going to move forward with Shazam as is. In days past, if Aquaman had come out and flopped, you would have heard instantly about massive reshoots on Shazam, trying to change everything. But you're not going to hear that this time around. Aquaman's going to come out. It's going to succeed or it's going to fail.
looks like it's going to succeed, but it's going to succeed or fail, and it will not matter. He will stick to the game plan. If it failed, he knows this is our first film coming out of Justice League. We had some uphill battles to climb. It's been a year since another DCEU movie. But he would have known that, not panicked, and kept moving ahead. If this movie's a $700 million worldwide global hit, he's going to go, okay. It's like a great football coach once said, you're never as bad as you think you are, and you're never as good as you think you are. And I think if they have like some $800 million global hit, he's not going to go, oh, well, let's change Shazam to be more like Aquaman. No. He's going to, we understood what we had. We got a plan, and we're going to stick with it. And I think that is going to be the big difference over the next 2 to 3 years that we're going to see in these Warner Brothers DC films is that consistency. We're going to see a belief in where they're going, and they're going to stick to it and not change everything the next time the smallest pebble hits the windshield.
I agree with you. And one of the problems that people don't understand is these are just widgets to the larger corporate structure of these companies. They're publicly held corporations, and they're making a product. And when they had this idea of building the shared universe, all the shareholders are like, well, why can't you do what Marvel's doing? So they made all these grandiose promises. Here's our slate of movies, and here's what we're going to do. And it's going to be great.
None of them exist anymore.
This is going to, and they let down. The most important thing is not just the audiences; they let down shareholders.
Yes.
The shareholders thought that they were promised a certain amount of money. We're going to make $1.5 billion just like the MCU Avengers movies. Well, that didn't work out. So how does that look to your investors? They're like, that's not good. I'm going to go over here and buy Disney stock. Now they've changed that. They're not making those promises anymore. They're going to make individual promises for each film that they're making. And that's, it looks to me like, look, Shazam it looks delightful. You know,
I cannot wait for Shazam.
Big with superheroes.
Yes.
I'm into that. They've got this crazy Joker movie that no one knows it, but he really is the clown prince of crime this time. Who knows what that's going to be? But what I like is that they're going now and making these individual movies and concentrating on making them good, not making them a part of some larger, grandiose tapestry that didn't have a Kevin Feige in the first place, so there was no direction.
And by the way, have you noticed in all these great Aquaman trailers, how many even remote references to anything in Justice League are mentioned? None. Zero. They're like, we are distancing ourselves from that. Now, maybe in the movie there will be a reference to Batman. Maybe in the movie there will be a reference to Superman. Who knows? But at least in the marketing, they know this is a new start. We're separating ourselves. We purposefully put a year between us and Justice League. We're making no references to anything, and we're moving forward. I think that says a lot. I think it says a lot.
I mean, cue the fanboy outrage when it's like, well, if Atlantis was going to go to war with the surface world, well, why didn't they call Superman or Wonder Woman? Where's the Amazonians? Where's everyone else?
Which is why
that's coming.
It's one of my big problems with shared universe films is always, well, why didn't Captain America come and help?
Right.
Let's just have a good movie. And I think we're heading for a good movie. All right, let's move on to the next tweet. And our next tweet today comes to us from Andy Daniels, who writes, in the UK, the name of the first Avengers movie is Avengers Assemble. Would they use the same title worldwide for Avengers 4? It's funny you mentioned that, Andy, because that kind of came up briefly earlier today on the John Campea show we were talking about. So for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, many times, the name of a movie here in North America, those movies will often, in some foreign markets, get different titles given to them. And they'll actually have a different title given to, like, I think Captain America was called The First Avenger in many places, right? So that's not uncommon. In the UK, apparently, the name of the first Avengers movie, which was just called Marvel's The Avengers, in the UK was called Avengers Assemble.
Well, it's also because The Avengers is a very famous TV show.
Yes, that's right.
John Steed and Mrs. Peel. You know, it was Patrick McNee and Diana Rigg.
And it was a Sean Connery movie as well.
Sean Connery
who was in that movie as a result of losing a golf bet, by the way.
Oh, I did not know.
You should look up that story. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, they had to call it that. And, Avengers Assemble again. Like we said before, I made that joke this morning. I mean, I don't think the movies, whatever they come up with, whether it's Annihilation or whatever it's going to be called, I think their title, they're keeping it under wraps because it's a spoiler, I guess. I mean, why else would they not tell
It
you
can't
what
be
it
a
is?
spoiler, or else the moment we heard the title would spoil it.
Well, but it leads you in the direction, or like if it's Avengers Annihilation or Avengers
If they
Disassembled.
gave the movie a title that even remotely spoiled something important in the movie, that would be pretty stupid.
Oh, I don't think it's going to
wouldn't it be-
spoil something in the movie.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's going to lead you down the path of what you're
what
gonna
direction
get.
the movie's going in. Right,
yeah,
right,
because
right.
otherwise, by the way, I just think it's great that we don't know what the title is, because we're still talking about what the title is. We've been talking about what the title is for a year, and we still don't know.
Within a week, I
Don't
think
drop the
we're going to
trailer.
know.
I don't want the trailer. I don't. I'm going to have to watch it, and I don't want to watch it.
Yeah, you say that.
I know,
the
but I'll watch it 100
moment the
times. I
trailer
know.
drops, you know what you're going to be doing.
I hate myself for it.
See, I think you can still call the movie Avengers Assemble. You can, but you just do in the UK what they've already done in the UK. You give the movie a different title, just like you gave it a different title before. You call it in the UK, you call it Avengers Annihilation or something, but in the rest of the world, it's called Avengers Assemble. Now, I'm not saying the name of the movie is going to be Avengers Assemble, but what I am saying is if that's what they think is the best movie or the best title for their movie, then title it that and just give it a different name in the UK like you've already done before. I just don't think it's that big of a deal, to be honest with you.
No, I know. I'm so excited for this movie.
I think all of us are. All right, let's take the final tweet of the day. And to wrap things up here, we come to us from Ricky C, who writes, Avengers 4 trailer is going to be a teaser or a full trailer, the Weekly Hero. Well, a lot of people will call things teasers, trailers. To me, it's when it's like a minute and a half. That's a teaser. I mean,
Right.
but you could put certain things in a minute and a half trailer that would make it a full-blown trailer. I think the first thing we get will not be a 2.5 minute full-blown thing. I think we are going to get a 1 to 1.5 minute thing. We're going to get lots of pop, lots of awe, lots of shock and awe.
Right.
Not a lot of narrative, not a lot of idea about what the main plot points are. So I guess in that sense, I'm predicting it will be, by definition, I guess, a teaser, but a teaser that will probably blow us away. I'm going to guess teaser. But do you think they're going to come out with a full 2.5 minute thing right out of the gate?
I agree with you. I think it's going to be a teaser. It is going to be shock and awe. Because the thing is, they don't even have to do anything. They can just show us pictures of the remaining Avengers just sitting around eating shawarma, and we're going to be like, and somebody will say, we really should try. It's been 5 years. Maybe we can try and do something about this. And that's all I have to see. That's the trailer. They're just sitting around a table like this.
I'll tell you right now the trailer's going to be.
The full trailer will be with Captain Marvel.
Possibly, or a week or two online advance before. But here's what's going to happen. It's going to be an opening shot. The screen goes from black just on, and it's going to be Black Panther, Spider-Man, Bucky, a bunch of, you got to have Rocket. You're going to have, not Rocket, I mean Groot. You're going to have all of them standing there like this going, we're back. And that's it. That's going to be your trailer. Avengers 4. That's what it's called. There, I figured out the title too. Avengers 4, we're back.
No, I told you it's going to be Hugh Jackman tomorrow announcing that Wolverine is in Avengers 4, and I'm just kidding.
And they're dropping the trailer.
That's not true. By the way, don't repeat that. I was kidding. It's a bad joke. You're not a replicant.
All right, guys, that will do it. The presses have been turned off. The lights are being turned out. That will do it. The final page has been turned on this week's episode of The Weekly Hero. Thanks so much for joining us here, guys. I want to thank, of course, the one and the only, the great Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at RMBurnett, or subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and tune into my show, Robservations, the show about something.
And you guys, of course, can follow me on Twitter simply at John Campea. Don't forget, guys, to keep tweeting to us. Just use that hashtag #TheWeeklyHero, and we will see your tweets. That'll do it for us for now, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. Until the next episode. Bye-bye.